As an athlete, you're conditioned to be delusional.
Grant Hill, the NBA Hall of Famer, is making way for Grant Hill, the film producer. The 7-time NBA All-Star and 2-time NCAA champion is in an elite group of current and former NBA athletes who are now also film producers. Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and they're all bringing a lens to Hollywood that's missing. Hill started a production company 10 years ago with his wife, Grammy-nominated singer Tamia, and together, they're building an impressive slate of work. His latest project will stream on NBC's The Peacock in September, and Hill co-produced it with Dwayne Wade, rapper Common, and producer Ninth Wonder. The documentary chronicles the first African-American high school rowing team in the nation. We chat. Grant, athletes are entering spaces that we normally might not see you guys in. In this case, we're talking about content creation in Hollywood. And I know that you've been a film producer for a number of years now. What first called to you to enter this industry?
Kelley, I've always loved stories, and certainly, an avid reader. Love watching documentaries, movies. And so it's just a platform to tell compelling stories. And I think sports, there's some incredible, inspiring people who've done some amazing things. And of course, we hear sometimes about the LeBron James and the Michael Jordans, and certainly the well-known athletes and their stories. But there's so many, small stories and examples of people who've overcome obstacles, who've done some just incredible things. And so to kind of use my platform, my celebrity, my resources to shine light on these stories is important. And so something I enjoy doing, and it's kind of a passion project. And I think we really found a really compelling story and an important story, considering the world that we're currently in. With regards to this Most Beautiful Thing documentary.
I was going to say that's the latest documentary that you've been part of, but there seems to be a connective tissue with all of the projects that you gravitate towards. Is it really that redemptive story and really kind of spotlighting neighborhoods and underrepresented communities in a way that we haven't seen them before? Is that truly the thing that calls to you?
In a way, yes. I mean, I think those examples, those stories, and also sports as an athlete. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a certain spirit, I think, in these underserved communities.
Yeah.
A way to humanize, I think, sometimes people, I think mainstream doesn't fully understand a lot of the experiences. Some of that's changing now with what's happened this summer. People are now sort of no longer in denial and are willing to pay more attention, particularly to people of color. But yeah, I mean, I think, having the opportunity to share these stories and really explain, I think documentaries are wonderful because it's the visual, and we're such a visual world that we're in right now. And so, like in this particular doc, to really share the trauma that these young men and young men like them in some of these inner city communities, like the trauma in terms of what they experience. You hear about Chicago and young Black men and the gang violence, but to really understand sort of why and to get into that and understand the family dynamics. And so it's an opportunity to weave that into the story, which we were able to do. Yeah. The post-traumatic stress syndrome, I mean, all that they have to endure. Look, it's hard enough just being Black, period, in America. Yeah. And even in my life as a relatively privileged young Black man and as an NBA and athlete and celebrity, there's still trauma, you know what I'm saying? And so there's still microaggressions, there's still all of that. But, to be able to tell these stories and to really highlight, those types of people who are our people who've had these experiences is something that is exciting and something I believe that's important and very necessary.
Yeah, this documentary, it's so beautifully shot and it's so emotionally gripping and kind of filled with all the things you just talked about, specifically the trauma in this case of being a young Black man growing up on Chicago's West Side. At what point were you brought into this project?
From the start, from its infancy. So I was brought in from the beginning. And, really when I was told an all Black West Side Chicago rowing team, I was like, does that make sense? Like, yeah. Can you repeat that one more time? Right. And, but yeah, I mean, so much of what I was hearing about in Chicago was negative, particularly with Black men and young Black men. And so a positive story, a story, and it wasn't like these guys went and won the national championship or city championship of their sport, because we define success differently, but it allowed them to belong to something bigger than themselves. It allowed them to belong to something constructive. I know in basketball, it's not a democracy. There's a pecking order. You're either LeBron James or you're at the end of the bench. And whereas rowing, as I learn more about the sport, it's a democracy. Everybody works together. Everybody's in unison. And so, kids from different neighborhoods, different families, different gangs, being able to come together and learn to coexist and learn to trust and learn, all the values that sports teach you. That experience, along with the character of these young men, they've gone on. And yeah, they've had some rough roads here, but to me, they're alive, they're successful, and you see and feel that brotherhood, that fraternity, that bond that they experience. It's lasted over 20 some odd years.
Grant, Hollywood can be such an exclusive fraternity, and it can be very difficult, I think, to kind of get inside of the circle. Was there ever any trepidation once you decided that you wanted to become a film producer that you might not be taken as seriously because people know you from one very particular and very amplified, way and very amplified industry?
I've never tried to sort of restrict myself to just being an athlete. And so, I deal with that, whether it's the work I've done in the finance industry, collecting art, real estate. I feel like people come in with this idea that you're a ball player. And so I've always sort of used that as an opportunity to prove people wrong. And so, filmmaking, Hollywood, that's a whole nother dynamic there. And certainly, you can go and look at, there's not a lot of representation of us. There's not a lot of people who look like you and I, who have the power to greenlight a project. And so I'm very much aware of that. But I also know that I have access. I'm someone, because of who I am and what I've accomplished, that I can get those meetings. I can get my foot in the door. Look, as an athlete, you're conditioned to be delusional. And what I mean by that is you're conditioned to think every time you play, you're going to win. Every time I suited up against Michael Jordan, I thought we were going to win.
Yeah.
And when you're in a game, you're down 10 points with 2 minutes left, you feel like you're going to come back and you're going to win. And so you feel like you can do whatever. And my wife, she often would joke with me at the end of my career, because I'd come home from training camp. And she said, how'd it go? And I said, I think we can win it this year. And she's like, you said it the last 16 years, and you didn't come close to winning. And so, but I mean, that's how you feel. And so I've had failures. I haven't always succeeded in everything I've tried to pursue, but I believe that I can.
We now live in a world where we have Grant Hill, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and so many other guys who, the thing that you guys share is that NBA, you guys are professional basketball players, and now you guys are all film producers. What is it that you think you guys are bringing to Hollywood that maybe was missing before you guys entered this space?
I think what's happened, in order to answer that, I got to explain sort of why that's the case. Mm-hmm. I think when I first came in the league in the 90s, technology, if I'm playing and living in Detroit, I don't necessarily know what goes on in Chicago, unless I really take the time and effort to investigate it. Now you can instantly find out what's going on all over the world. And so the access to information, one. And then on top of that, the voice that technology and social media gives you. You have a platform now. You can control the narrative. And so you're seeing athletes who have controlled, instead of relying on the media necessarily, not to knock your profession, but you can now speak directly to an audience, and you can give your thoughts and opinions and perspectives on a number of things. And so I feel like we've all naturally been creating content in some ways, and sharing our real, true beliefs and opinions. And we also, I think we're so much more empowered. We understand the value of who we are. There's just a feeling that, okay, we have a voice, and we're going to leverage that voice. We're going to leverage our celebrity. It's not going to be just marketing products, but framing narratives and telling stories.
Is there someone who produced some really great pieces of work that you are eyeballing, and maybe even in some cases designing your career as a Hollywood producer after theirs?
No, because here's the thing. It's crazy. So my wife and I started a production company, and our imprint is involved in this film, and we have a couple other things in the pipeline. Really, the impetus for us was, she's in music, I'm in sports. You know what? We've never really done anything together. We have our own sort of separate worlds. And so let's come together and do something. And so that sort of really was the impetus for me and for us to get involved in this. But I never really looked at it as a career, but it's kind of becoming that. I just like good stories and compelling stories, and stories that, quite frankly, are people of color. I think that's important. And so Hollywood hasn't always figured out people of color. And not to say that I'm an authority on that, but if I can use our platform, collective platform, to highlight that, then I'm happy.
Well, listen, this town has definitely embraced you as a film producer, because 2 years ago, when we all got word that you were going to be inducted, all of the trades were writing, Hollywood film producer Grant Hill, is also being inducted into the NBA Hall of Fame. So I think that was very telling about the reception that you've gotten from this town. I don't know if you saw those stories, but I thought those were kind of some cool, fun headlines to see.
Yeah, no, I may have to go on Google now to check them out.
You have to. Before I let you go, I really want to ask, because I know you've been paying attention to what's happening with the NBA right now. Does it surprise you how successful the NBA has been able to operate inside of the bubble?
When the idea first came about, I just didn't know how it was going to work. And you could create a pure bubble and not, compromise the health and safety of players. But they really thought this through, and it's been beautifully executed. I mean, it really has been. There's been no positive tests. The games have been fantastic. And the NBA, the Players Association, the players using the platform to try to speak to some of the social injustices that have occurred. The league embracing the voice of its players. Not saying that the NBA is perfect, but I feel like the partnership between the players, putting the names on the jerseys, giving players an outlet to talk about things that are important to them on this particular stage. Like, it's been overwhelming, but there's also been a real sense of pride that we've been able to pull this off. And, hopefully we can get through and crown a champion and have no issues. But it's been great. I'm proud of the leadership on the player side and on the league side throughout this crisis.
I love that. Thank you for watching another act. Up next, you all know her. It's award-winning actress Jurnee Smollett, starring in HBO's Lovecraft Country.